Hi, and welcome back to For the Love of Dogs and Their Humans. I'm Deb from Busy Paws, and today's episode is a big one. I'm talking about something that gets thrown around way too often in the dog world, and that is the dominance theory. Probably heard of things like, you need to show your dog who's boss, or don't let them walk in front of you. And I'm here to say that I call BS on the whole thing. Not just because science doesn't back it up, but because I've seen firsthand how damaging it can be. And it's not only for our dogs, but it's for us humans too. So, where did this dominance stuff come from? The dominance theory came from studies done on captive wolves in the 1930s, almost 100 years ago. The researchers observed wolves fighting for alpha status, and that's where this whole idea of being the pack leader came from. But those wolves weren't a family unit. They were unrelated wolves thrown together in captivity. When researchers studied wild wolves, they saw something completely different. They lived in family groups, not power-based hierarchies. The so-called leaders were really just the parents, and they were guiding and protecting, not dominating. But despite this being debunked, this old theory still trickled down into dog training. So, what does dominance training actually look like? Now, dominance training can be extreme or can actually be quite subtle. Obvious examples are pinning dogs to the ground or yanking on their leads or yelling and using force to correct a behavior. But it can be a lot more subtle. So things like not letting your dog go through the door before you, or making them submit before offering affection, or not allowing your dog on the sofa because they might think that they own it. That's control without context. So what I mean by this is if you're doing something for a valid safety reason, that's one thing. But when you're doing it just to show your dog who's boss, that's not leadership. It's not training. It's posturing and it's ego driven. And it often ignores the dog's emotional state completely. I want to share two experiences that honestly still make me feel sick to my stomach to this day. The first one was with Kenya. She's my black Kelpie. If you follow me on social media, you would have seen her, got the most incredible ears. Kenya was my first Kelpie, so I was into training, going and figuring out all about Kelpies and how they worked and how they were different to other dogs. And one particular workshop I went to, one of the trainers pinned her to the ground because when she grabbed her collar to pull her off the sheep, Kenya pulled away. Kenya was so terrified, she pooped herself. I was in complete shock and I was frozen on the spot. I didn't know what to do. And I still, to this day, carry that guilt and anger. The second one was a foster dog that I was testing on sheep. And I don't want to badmouth sheep trainers, by the way. There are some amazing clubs and some amazing trainers that train dogs on sheep. So this is definitely not an attack on any trainers in sheep herding. These are just two very unfortunate incidences that happened to be on sheep. So the second one was a foster dog I was testing on sheep. And the volunteer trainer at the club, for whatever reason, insisted the dog had to sit before entering the paddock. Now, this dog was not long out of the pound where she had been completely shut down. And sitting in that moment was just not possible. So, what did the trainer do? She started tugging on her lead and yelling at her. Fortunately, this time I had the strength and the courage to step in. I grabbed the lead and I walked away. And while I walked away, this trainer was yelling at me that I wasn't doing the right thing by the dog and that the dog was never going to be rehomed and blah, 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 blah. And even though I stood up for the dog and I knew I'd done the right thing, the whole experience left me feeling really rattled. I want to talk about this because it's important, and that is the impact on humans. The dominance theory doesn't just harm dogs, it harms their humans too. So when you're given advice by someone you trust, especially a professional, but it feels wrong in your gut, it creates what we call a conflict of emotion. You feel torn or maybe guilty. I still feel that today, nearly 10 years later. I can still feel the pit in my stomach. Dominance-based training can make people feel like they too soft or like they're doing it all wrong just because they choose kindness. And I'm here to tell you, you are not too soft. If your trainer makes you feel horrible inside or does something that doesn't sit right with you, it's okay to walk away. In fact, it's more than okay to walk away. It's the right thing to do. So back to the dogs after my little tangent. In both those situations that I experienced, both dogs were in a state of fear. Their stress buckets were full, probably overflowing. Kenya pulled back because she was scared. That's called opposition reflex, and it's totally normal. The foster dog didn't sit not because she was being disobedient, because her nervous system was in fight, flight, freeze. She could not move. They weren't misbehaving. They were simply overwhelmed in that situation. Dominance training ignores all of this. It doesn't ask why the dog is doing something. It simply punishes the outcome. And for me, that is a huge, huge problem. So what does true leadership look like? Let's be honest, when people think of the word leadership, they picture someone taking charge or calling the shots. But the kind of leadership I'm talking about looks nothing like that. I love using elephants as an example for leadership. In wild elephant herds, the matriarch leads, not because she's the biggest or the loudest, because she's the wisest. She has life experience. She's calm, she's steady, and the herd follows her because they trust her. And that's what we should be for our dogs. Not the alpha, not the boss, but the one who says, I've got you, you're safe. When we shift from I need to control my dog to I need to support my dog, that is true leadership. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? This is such a powerful question. Why am I doing this? If it's to keep your dog safe, build calm, or help them learn, then that's fine. If it's for connection or guidance or learning, amazing. But if the reason is to feel in control, maybe it's time to step back. Real leadership doesn't need to intimidate. Real leadership leads with empathy, not ego. Now, lots of us have grown up in homes where taking a dog's food away, for example, mid-meal was normal. It was to stop them being possessive. It's what we now call resource guarding. It was to show them who was the boss. And maybe you're thinking, well, it worked. We never had a dog that resource guarded. But here's the thing. Maybe your dog just masked their emotions. I'd be pretty annoyed if someone took my food away from me mid-meal for no reason. Or maybe you were lucky enough and had a dog whose nervous system could handle it. It didn't mean they were okay with it. And it didn't teach them trust. It just taught them that people take things away. When we know better, we do better. Thanks so much to listening to this one. It was a big one and something I am passionate about. If this episode made you think or it brought up something emotional, know that you are not alone. We've all been on a learning journey, and this stuff isn't always easy to talk about, but we grow by questioning, learning, and doing better for ourselves and for our dogs. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, be kind to yourself, be kind to your dog, and I will chat to you next week.